All right, so in the aftermath of this Day of Reckoning card, we've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about Daniel Dubois. We've talked about the performance Joseph Parker put in against Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder, we've talked a lot about him. Ben Davison being in the corner for Anthony Joshua. But we didn't really go in depth too much. We done a post fight and all that, but we didn't go in depth too much about how good Joshua looked in there against Oliver Lane, how confident he looked, and how he was willing to let those big shots go. He did everything in that fight apart from get a devastating knockout, which he probably would have got, truth be told, had Oliver Lane come out for the 6th, 7th round, however long the fight went, because it was going only one way. Joshua was going to win the fight. So he looked good in there. Now, some would argue that's from Ben Davison being in the corner, maybe changing things up, and yeah, it could be that, but you have to take into consideration the fact that Joshua has been active this year. He's had 3 fights this year. How many did he have in 2022? One. He had one in 2021. He had one in 2020. And he had 2 in 2019. In fact, actually, he's been having 2. Before that, he was having, I think the last time he had 3 fights in a calendar year was 2016. So it's been a while since he had 3 fights in a calendar year. Now, activity for me has always been an important part of boxing when I see fighters who are active. Because at the end of the day, it's like anything, I'll give you a good example of another sport, and we'll talk about how it helps, right? I'll go on a bit off topic here, but just trust me on this. If you look at a sport like darts, a lot of darts players will say that they don't tend to practice that much because they're on tour. So they're playing game after game after game on tour, which is essentially their practice. So essentially steel sharpens steel. With boxing, people are in the gym, they say this, that, and the other, but there's ticking over and there's being in full camp, getting ready to go in for a fight. And I think that that's benefited Anthony Joshua greatly over the last year. And it's helped him look as good as he did. Obviously, he was familiar with Oliver Lane, so he was confident going into that fight, but he looked very good. Now, that's going to stand him in very good stead for next year. There are a couple of opponents we can talk about, and I'll probably cover them in a separate video. Might record it tomorrow at some point. But for now, obviously, the man that many people are talking about, I know Eddie Hearn mentioned this guy's name, and obviously he is hoping, I think, that Alexander Usyk loses to Tyson Fury, so that they can do Fury versus Joshua, because that really is the fight. Whether it's in the UK or whether it's in Saudi Arabia, that is the fight that's the one. And that's a fight that will always be there, I think, for both guys, regardless in their careers. But whilst now they're both, like, Joshua he's not the star that he was a couple of years ago, right? Fury is kind of taking over that mantle. But that fight in the UK in of itself is a massive fight. And going into 2024, that could be a fight that potentially does happen. Let's say Tyson Fury comes through Alexander Usyk. Let's say he does. And let's say, Alexander Usyk decides, do you know what, I'm not going to invoke the rematch clause. I'm going to bow out of boxing, hypothetically speaking. It wouldn't shock me for Fury to sit on the sidelines, wait and see what happens between Joshua and Hrgovic. I think that fight right there, Joshua Hrgovic, if it does happen, I'd be favouring Joshua to win just based upon how Hrgovic's been looking as of late. Really, that Damari fight told us nothing, really. You can only really go by the last 2 performances against Zhang and Dempsey McKee. Didn't look amazing in either of those fights. I think Joshua, from what I've seen there, he'd have too much for Filip Hrgovic. That would actually mean, potentially, if Fury holds on to all the other titles, again, this is hypothetical, right? But let's say he holds on to all the other titles, you could have a second undisputed fight going. Fury versus Joshua, whether it's for undisputed or not, I think that is a massive fight. And I've always felt in that fight, I've always favoured Fury. I've always favoured Tyson Fury. But I've always felt that stylistically Joshua can pose Fury some problems. Ben Davison several years ago, obviously before he was in Team Joshua, said that Fury does everything better. He doesn't, right? Joshua, to me, is better on the inside. He throws better short shots, hooks and uppercuts, and he can work a bit more on the inside. Tyson Fury isn't really that. Whenever he's had to come forward in fights, get the high guard going and let short shots go, it's not looked as natural. With Joshua, it looks a lot more natural. So he does do things in there better than Tyson Fury. And at this point in both their respective careers, people are saying that Joshua, it looks like he could be, coming into, would you call it his prime? No, I would say his athletic prime is gone. I wouldn't say he's far removed from it, but in terms of athletic prime, probably safe to say it's gone. But could he be coming into his prime, maybe mentally as a fighter? Potentially. Could it be an Indian summer? Some people are calling it that. I don't know, but we could be coming into a good patch for Joshua. Whereas you look at Tyson Fury, you see that performance against Ngannou. Had Usyk had been in there, had Anthony Joshua been in there, right? People like that, in my opinion, they'd have won. They'd have beaten that version of Tyson Fury, right? How close can Tyson Fury get to the old him, to the Fury who fought Wilder in that rematch, to the Fury who fought Klitschko? I don't think we'll ever get that Fury. The Fury who fought Klitschko. We may never get the Fury who fought Wilder in the rematch, but could Fury maybe operating at 80% be enough? Possibly. But I think if that fight happens next year, Joshua is a real problem for Tyson Fury. It's a real big problem for Tyson Fury. And I think that Eddie Hearn genuinely knows and believes that. And to be honest with you, this is one where I do disagree with Hatman on something. Because he's often said that in his opinion, last year when the fight was offered to Joshua, the Fury fight, that he felt that Team Joshua didn't want it. I actually felt that they did. And I've always said it. I've always stood on that I felt that Team Fury almost made that fight deliberately difficult for Team Joshua, setting unrealistic times. As I said, when you see Fury, when he wants a fight to get made, it's made. When he doesn't want a fight to get made, you're going through all these hoops to try and get the fight going, and eventually you just say, the hell with this. And I think that's exactly what happened. I think that Team Joshua, given the opportunity, they would have taken it. But they had a few terms that and again, you could say they're the B-side. They shouldn't be dictating terms. All I think they were really saying was they weren't going to get the lion's share of the purse. But they were willing to, say, okay, you're going to get the most. Let's see what happens. And it was just this and that and this and that. I always felt that they would have taken that. But it was Team Fury who just, again, look at their history. Moving those goalposts, there you go. And when the Ngannou fight, made like that. If that fight happens next year, providing a lot of things, I think it's a very competitive fight. We need to really have a look and see what way Fury is going to be in this fight. I've seen someone in the Element group, and I haven't actually seen it myself, but I must actually go back and watch it, but he posted a link to an interview with Sugar Hill Stewart. And in the title before, he was saying the way he was speaking, it doesn't sound exactly like he's optimistic about the fight taking place with Alexander Usyk on February 17th. I hope that's not the case. But that fight will tell us a lot about where Fury is at. And Joshua, it's going to be interesting to see him in 2024. What he does training-wise, Derek James, Ben Davison, let's wait and see. But he definitely looked in a good place in that Audovalian fight. And again, the activity is going to stand him in good stead for next year. And him against Fury, if it happens next year, that fight right there is a very competitive fight. And Tyson Fury could have a big problem in that fight. A massive problem with Anthony Joshua. And that's what I got to think about that fight. Because you only have to think as well, Joshua, say what you want to say about him, but he's been a consummate professional through the years. When have you ever seen Joshua go getting drunk, gaining 100 pounds in weight, taking whatever, and any of that stuff? You haven't. He's been a consummate professional, certainly in that sense of staying in the gym, staying in shape, and keeping himself in the gym, in training. Fury, he said going into the Ngannou fight, he had to lose a load of weight. He said it was 100 pounds. You really know it was 100 pounds. But he certainly definitely had to lose weight. He didn't come into camp in the best of shape. And all that does catch up with you. It absolutely does. Absolutely 100% does. So it's going to be interesting next year. Fury, Usyk, the winner of that may have Joshua in their future. And if Fury wins, I'd say it's a definite chance that they'll have Joshua in their future. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If they do Fury Joshua next year, if it happens, who do you have? Let me know in the comments. Who do you have, Joshua or Fury? Let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed it, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, as always, if you haven't already. For now, I will leave you all with that. Peace.